The iPhone 5C is made with all the incredible technology that customers have loved with the iPhone 5. And there's more too.
The iPhone 5C was definitely one of Apple's biggest failures, as it only got about a tenth of the sales that the iPhone 5S got. So in this video, we're just going to go over what caused this iPhone to fail so horribly and what made it so unique at the time. Now first off, let's take a look at the history of the iPhone 5C. So the iPhone 5C was released back in 2013 on September 20th, and this is actually the same for the iPhone 5S, but the iPhone 5C was discontinued just 1 year later, so just that in itself already proves that the iPhone 5C was a pretty big failure. So you might be wondering, what is the iPhone 5C? Well, it's basically the iPhone 5 but in the plastic shell. There were some smaller differences like with the storage, but the key difference was just the plastic shell that was on the iPhone 5C. Now let's take a look at the design of the iPhone 5C. So on the bottom we have the home button, which doesn't have Touch ID on it, so it is designed a bit differently. And on the back, of course, we have the plastic shell, but over here the power button is at the top, and at the bottom we do actually have a headphone jack. This was actually 3 years before Apple removed the headphone jack from their iPhones. And some of the other small design features are the volume buttons on the side, and over here we have the SIM card. So moving on from the design of the iPhone 5C, what made this device so unpopular? Well, first off, it wasn't that exciting because it was basically an iPhone 5 in a plastic shell, so there wasn't really much to look forward to. And second of all, the device was too expensive to compete with other affordable flagships such as the Nexus, OnePlus, and the Motorola. Now let's take a look at the features of the iPhone 5C and whether or not it still works in 2023. So first off, we're going to start off with the battery. And the iPhone 5C has a battery life of 1,510 milliamp hours, and that is actually a bit higher compared to the regular iPhone 5, which is 1,440 milliamp hours. And if we compare that to a popular phone such as the iPhone 12, you'll see that the iPhone 12 will be at 2,815 milliamp hours. So overall, the battery of the iPhone 5C is not that great, but it does still work well. So let's take a look at the speed of the iPhone 5C, and let's try loading YouTube first. And you'll see that the website will load pretty quickly. The problem is that when I try downloading YouTube, it doesn't work for me on the iPhone 5C because the device is just way too outdated. This is also true for many other apps out there, such as the Twitter app and Google. Now the iPhone 5C has an A6 chip with 1GB of RAM, and if we compare that to the iPhone 5S, you'll see that the iPhone 5S will be 1 year later. And if you compare that to one of the most popular modern day phones, which is the iPhone 12, you'll see that the iPhone 12 will have an A14 chip with 4GB of RAM. So let's move on to the camera test. So the iPhone 5C records at 1080p at 30fps. So let's try getting some footage on here. So here's some video footage on the iPhone 5C. And let's try focusing on the calculator. And you can tell that the video quality is just not good, but that's not really unsurprising for a 10-year-old device. And let's actually compare this to the iPhone 14 Pro. So here's what video footage looks like on the iPhone 14 Pro. And let's try focusing the camera on the iPhone 5C. And you can tell that the video quality has improved quite a lot over the last 10 years. Now here's what a photo looks like on a 10-year-old 8-megapixel camera. And here's what a photo looks like on the 48-megapixel iPhone 14 Pro. So you can tell that the photo has a lot better lighting and it is a lot less grainy. Now, even though the iPhone 5C is quite outdated, we do at least have a flashlight here. And in case you're wondering, the flashlight feature first appeared on the iPhone 4, which was about 2 years prior to the regular iPhone 5. So the iPhone 5C has a display quality of 1136 by 640, and because the screen size is only 4 inches diagonally, it's not really that noticeable, but it is still pretty low compared to some of the later devices, which have about a 2K resolution. Now the iPhone 5C only runs up to iOS 10, so you can't get some of the later iOS features such as dark mode and widgets, but surprisingly, the Watch app still works on this update. So if you have some of the earlier watches, such as the Apple Watch Series 0, you can still pair it with this iPhone. Now, is the iPhone 5C still useful in 2023? Well, other than collecting purposes, it's not really that useful, other than if you're planning on using it for a separate music player. And you can actually connect it to iTunes and download offline songs on here. But other than that, this iPhone is quite pointless in 2023 since many of the features just don't work well and the specs are quite awful. And that is basically it for the iPhone 5C retrospective in 2023. Please consider subscribing and I'll see you in the next one.